So, have you ever had that gut feeling that some things are just wrong, no matter what good might come out of them? Well, today we're diving into a major school of thought in moral philosophy that says yes, absolutely. It's called deontology, and it's all about the rules we live by and the duties we're bound to follow. Let's kick things off with a classic, a situation I'm sure we've all been in. Your friend walks up with a, let's say, adventurous new haircut and asks you what you think. Do you tell them the brutal truth, or do you tell a little white lie to save their feelings? How you answer that question actually gets to the very heart of a huge debate in ethics. You see, if your first thought is, nope, gotta tell the truth, lying is wrong, then you're focusing on the action itself. But if you'd go for the white lie, you're focused on the outcome, protecting your friend's feelings. This very tension, this clash between the action and the consequence, is exactly what we're going to unpack. Right, so this disagreement really opens up two completely different ways of looking at ethics. Let's break them down. Okay, so path number one is deontology. The name itself comes from the Greek word deon, which literally means duty. At its core, it's an ethical theory that says morality is all about following the rules. Certain things are just right and certain things are just wrong, period. The results don't even enter the equation. Now, deontology is almost always talked about in contrast to consequentialism. And just like the name suggests, a consequentialist only cares about the consequences. For them, the ends can absolutely justify the means. But for a deontologist, no way. The means, the action itself, is everything. To really get a handle on deontology, you have to meet its most famous architect. We're talking about the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant. His ideas are pretty much the bedrock of this entire way of thinking. Kant's whole theory really boils down to this one powerful idea. He asked himself, what is something that is good with no ifs, ands, or buts, good in and of itself? His answer wasn't wealth, or intelligence, or even happiness. It was a good will. So what on earth did he mean by a good will? Well, for Kant, you have a good will when you choose to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. It's about acting out of a pure respect for the moral law, not because you're hoping for a reward or trying to avoid punishment. And this is the absolute key to understanding Kant. It's not what you do that makes an action moral, it's why you do it. The motive is everything. Think about it. Let's say you gave a bunch of money to charity, but you only did it to look good on social media. Even though the charity got the money, Kant would say your action has zero moral worth because your motive was selfish. You didn't do it out of duty. This really shows you how hardcore Kant was about his rules. For him, there were no exceptions. Zero. Not even a tiny white lie. Why? Because he believed that every single lie, no matter how small or well-intentioned, damages the very foundation of truth that a moral society needs to function. It chips away at trust itself. Now, Kant's ideas are obviously huge, but he's not the only voice in deontology. It's a pretty broad field, and people have different ideas about where our moral duties actually come from. One of the other major branches is something called divine command theory, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. Here, our moral duties are seen as direct commands from God. You do the right thing because it's your duty to obey God's law, plain and simple. Fast forward a bit to the 20th century, and you get a philosopher named W.D. Ross who offered a more flexible take on all this. He looked at Kant's system and thought, this is just too rigid. Real life is more complicated than one single rule. He argued that we actually have several different duties we're always trying to balance. Ross called these our prima facie duties. It's a Latin phrase that basically means at first sight, or on the face of it. These are the duties that just seem self-evidently right, Things like keeping your promises, showing gratitude, not hurting people. But as you're looking at this list, you might already see a problem brewing, which is what happens when these duties crash into each other. This is probably the biggest challenge for deontology, especially for Ross's more nuanced version. Let's play it out. Say you promise to meet a friend for coffee. That's a duty of fidelity. But on your way there, you see someone who's just been in a car accident and clearly needs help. That's a duty of beneficence, or doing good. Suddenly, your duties are in a head-on collision. What do you do? Ross's solution to this was pretty clever. He made a distinction between a prima facie duty and what he called an absolute duty. The way to think about it is this. Your prima facie duties are like all the good arguments you could make in a debate. Your absolute duty is the final decision you make after you've weighed them all. So, in that accident scenario, the duty to help someone in immediate danger would almost certainly outweigh the duty to be on time for coffee. Helping them becomes your absolute duty in that moment. All right, now let's put these ideas through the ultimate stress test with probably the most famous thought experiment in all of philosophy. Okay, you know the one. Picture this. There's a runaway trolley. It's completely out of control, and it's hurtling towards 5 people who are tied to the track. You just happen to be standing right next to a lever. If you pull that lever, you can switch the trolley onto a different track, saving those 5 people. But here's the catch. There is one person tied to that other track. If you divert the trolley, that one person will die instead. So what do? A consequentialist would probably pull the lever without much hesitation. The math is simple, right? Saving 5 lives at the cost of one is the better outcome. But a strict deontologist? They've got a real problem. For them, pulling that lever is an intentional act of killing someone. That action is fundamentally wrong, and the fact that it saves 5 others doesn't change that. You would be actively violating the duty of non-injury. So, after going through all of this, what's the big takeaway here? What does the deontological view really tell us about how we should make our own decisions? Well, it's clear that deontology isn't just one single idea. It's more like a family of theories. But whether you think the rules come from pure reason like Kant, or from God, or from a set of competing duties like Ross, they all share one fundamental belief: that morality is found in the action itself, in our commitment to our duty, not in the final score. At the end of the day, understanding deontology gives us a powerful new lens to look at our own moral compass. It forces us to ask ourselves, are there certain lines that should never be crossed, no matter what? So I'll leave you with this. When you're faced with a tough choice, what do you check first, your personal rulebook or the scoreboard?